Welcome to the Sullivan Street podcast. I am Eric Vogelsang with my co-host Chris Miggs, and
Hey.
boy, another special treat today as we have one of the original founding members of Counting Crows, Steve Bowman. But before we say hi to him, I'll just say a quick hello to Chris. Chris, what do you think? Another exciting day, huh?
I'm excited. Let's get into this. Let's talk about crows.
There's only 5 original members, so each one is it's a pleasure to speak to. So, Steve, good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Well, pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So let's start real easy, and I guess we'll go from the beginning. Or do you? I guess we'll do the beginning first, Chris. I was also going to say what he did post Crows, but let's do the beginning. I guess if you look on Wikipedia, et cetera, it says, "Oh, you joined the band '91 and left '94." So we have 3 years in there. We know that there's a Bay Area connection to everyone. In a recent interview, Adam, I think, mentioned that your connection to the band, like for example, we know Matt was connected with Dave, right, etc. Your connection was you were in a different band downstairs from where they were practicing. Is that correct, or do you want to talk about that?
Yes, but I would say my connection was through Dave.
Okay.
I almost forgot that I was rehearsing in a band in the same warehouse that Dancing Dog's studio was housed in. Dancing Dog was Dave's 16-track, 2-inch studio in Emeryville, California, and it was a beautiful little place. And my band recorded a record there, and that's how I met Dave. And then after that, he would call me back to do other things. One of the things I was good at was playing with a click. I had worked a lot on dink, 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 so not many people had done that. And as a drummer in my early 20s, it was a lucky break because then if a drummer was doing a session at Dancing Dog and they couldn't keep to the click, Dave would call me in. And so that was my relationship with Dave at that point.
So
And
you
I
were in a
really,
band and you recorded there, and you met him because he was working there.
yeah,
Did
that band
you
was, what's that?
did you know any of the band members from either, like, not maybe not personally, but seeing them at a club or something like that before then? Do you think, or not really?
It's funny. I didn't. And
Okay.
it surprises me because I should have. We were all kind of working in the same club scene, but I was in a really different facet of it. I was in like more. We were doing like it just come out of the '80s, and I was doing like funk stuff, like um, like I wanted to be the drummer in Level 42,
Right, right.
music school, music school nerd stuff, and I knew Dave because I had heard his band, Mr. Dog, and they were amazing. And they had a song called We're Only Love, I think it was, that I got a recording of and listened to just over and over again. So when I worked with Dave, I remember thinking at that time, I would love to do something with Dave. I love his sensibilities, I love his musicality. And I was kind of wimpy for the band I was in at that point. And so I thought Dave would be more in line with my with
Yeah.
what I was interested in and who I was. And so it was I don't know, a few at some point Dave called me and said that he wanted to put a had an idea. He had a friend, they were going to put a band together, and I was like, oh, this is it. So he gave me a demo tape. Then I guess a lot of those songs you guys know, and then we recorded more, and that became the demo that got the band signed. But when I first heard those songs, it was just cemented for me. It's like, all right, I love these songs, and I want to play in a band with Dave. So that was how that started. I met Matt then, who was the bassist in Mr. Dog, although I'd
Right.
never met him, and met Adam, and I'd never met Adam. I'd never heard of the Himalayans. It was a completely different scene.
Hmm.
And then Charlie, too, whom I'm surprised I hadn't met because he was a real prominent keyboardist in the area, and I was trying to be a prominent drummer in the area, but uh, we hadn't met.
Do you
I
know
will,
if like so Dave knew you and maybe you had Dave's recommendation like hey Adam, Steve's a great drummer. Do
oh
you
yeah,
know if you had to compete against other drummers or did they look at seven different ones and then chose the best and what
well,
do you think? And if so, what do you think you brought that helped them select you?
well, I'm really lucky in that it wasn't that type of thing. Adam and Dave had decided to put a band together, and Dave called me. He ran into Matt, as I found out on your podcast, I think. um, and then Charlie, I think they both knew, but it was more rather than, hey, there's 10 people coming down today, it was, let's play some music and see how it feels. And it just was really great from the start. I loved the songs. And so I listened to I listened to the songs and really, uh, I knew them. I knew the tempos
Mm,
and the changes because I'd been listening to them a lot. And so when I got there, it wasn't me having to like play off notes or try to remember what was happening next. I was just dancing to these songs I knew. And so as a drummer, that's a great benefit I had. And we all got along real well. They're, the band was they're kind of sophisticated I wish I'd been more so. I wasn't as sophisticated, but um, you know the lyrics obviously I'd come from the funk world. It's like
mm.
uh, well, it's more you're trying to generate feelings through the music than the lyrics.
Right,
But
certainly maybe the lyrics weren't written by English major at Berkeley or whatever. So
yes,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, it just that's how it all came together. I was telling someone on a different podcast that you may have seen that we recorded 2 weeks after that first meeting. We got together and we started playing every day, and it was great. And it was like I couldn't wait to get to the rehearsal at Adam's house and play the songs and hang with these new guys I met that I thought were so
Mm.
cool. So that was how it started. Um,
Oh, that's fantastic. Did
How
you?
long was it
Yeah,
before you
please.
started playing live after? Because I know there's also again, you guys were a recording band before you even like played a live show. But what's like the gap from like okay, we went and recorded the demo, and now it's like maybe we should start playing some shows.
oh, it was quick. I mean, we started immediately playing little shows that nobody came to, and playing small venues, and hoping, sending out mailing list stuff that people had, and hoping we could get 100 people and then 150. And we did had an article come out in the local what was the pink section of the Chronicle. This all sounds like antiquated stuff, but it was actually something that we were on the cover of the pink section, and that was seen by everybody. And so we played a show after that came out, and there's a line around the block. And I think Matt told that story because we'd all gone to get pizza, and we were walking, and there's this huge line going down the street, and we're just like, who's playing there? I mean, we really didn't know it was for us. And we're kind of thinking, oh man, some other band is doing well tonight. I mean, it was amazing.
Oh, that's
That was how we discovered that the pink section had
oh.
kind of helped us out, because after that, it was always packed,
So
uh,
so
and in
it's
small venues. I mean,
yeah.
Right.
So it
But
sounds
in the
it's
clubs, right? I
yeah.
mean, it's a
yeah,
full club show, which is
yeah,
meaningful when you guys are just in a club band at that point.
yeah.
So it sounds like you, what you, at least your memory, that there was like, of course, like kind of a pre-demo tape, maybe of Dave and Adam workshopping songs or recording some early stuff, but the actual demo that got sent to the record companies ahead of bidding war, you were, I guess, on most of or all of those songs, I'm assuming.
No, I would have been on the ones we recorded that day, and I think we recorded some more later. But
Yeah,
um, I can't remember what we did that day. Although
like
that
some of the
day,
stuff like Einstein on the Beach was, was that
that
like
was
that was you?
recorded that day, 2 weeks
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
and I can't remember what else. But then we added to it, I think, and It was a long demo. It was like
Yeah, yeah.
12 or 13 songs. So it wasn't,
Something
but
like that.
Toby Hawkins did a lot of those. He was the original, uh, played with them, and Lydia Hawley played keyboards, and Marty Jones, Mr. Jones, played bass.
Right.
For a while, they did that. I don't know if they ever played any shows, but they did some recording. One of the benefits was that Dave had this beautiful studio, and
Mm.
anytime we had a new song, we'd just pop on over and knock it out, you know. And he had a great ear. He was a very talented producer engineer. Um, so, uh, what a benefit for a band to not have to worry about how are we going to record, you know, who's got some money, you know, that's a major expense.
Yeah, that's what I have heard too. That Dave having that engineer. I mean, what? How many bands in their early 20s that are just starting have someone with like engineering mixing experience? That
I
doesn't
mean,
happen much. So.
at their disposal at a time when demo tapes were pretty well. A demo tape was how you got heard, you know.
Hmm.
So
Can you paint us a picture of Dancing Dog? Because I've always kind of I don't know, we hear about it a lot, and I'm just trying to imagine it like this studio that this indie musician has, I guess with rehearsal rooms around it as well. But just sort of like, what was it
yeah.
like? Where was it situated? I'm just kind of curious of like where like what that looked like.
Well, it was a huge warehouse in Emeryville, and the warehouse was chopped into different size places for people to work, live workspace, and there were kind of freaky skateboarders and musicians and serious woodworkers and ironwork, you know, all different types of folks. A lot of people lived there because you just go inside this big open hole and build whatever you want. And so that's what Dave did. Dave probably had, I mean, it wasn't big. He probably had, I'm going to just guess and say it was 60 feet by 20 feet. And so in there, he built a small recording, a tracking room. And next to that was the booth with the board in it. And I mean, like, once you got the board in there and built it in, that's it. It's this type of thing where the board is bigger than the door. And then there was you would go there was double doors, and then you'd go, and it was a flat out warehouse waiting room, a cement floor, ceilings are 30 feet high, big dirty windows, but funky and cool, you know. And there was a couch and a place for to listen to music, you know, but
Oh, that's neat.
super small. It was 16 track 2-inch rec- reel to reel recording, you know, and Dave could flip the tape over and create record things on the other side, which he did for a couple songs. And
Hmm.
like if there was a problem, Dave could get in there and snip it out with his you
Oh,
know
the splicer, right? Yeah, the
and
splice. Yeah.
reattach the tape. So I mean, forgotten arts.
Yeah, no, I remember I even did a little bit of that when I was doing some radio stuff early.
Yeah,
So I, of course, I was also many Crows fans, but I guess, and I don't know if I should have, sorry, Crows questions, but maybe I should have started, but I kind of wanted to get right into you joining about a little bit about your bio. Because I do think it's a neat story, and this is a good place to tell it. And I think you've said on other podcasts, and then you can fill in the blank now. Something I think your parents bought you a drum set when you were 5 or something, and you fell in love there, and then I kind of heard that you were in some bands later and played at a amusement park and when you were 18 or 19. But like, what about the time in between? And did you, when you were in junior high and high school, did you think, hey, I'm going to do this as a career? And then you just mentioned something I think about music school, so I don't know anything about that. So please, yeah.
yeah. Well, I always start this story with a cough. No, I'm
Please,
sure you can edit this out. I still smoke pot. Sorry.
it's fine. It's
Um,
fine.
well, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, I basically. Well, let me start this way. You can edit from here.
Right.
um, I like to say I fell in love with the first drum set I ever saw, and I was about 5 years old, and I was just captivated by the look and sound of drums. And And I think I feel so lucky for that because, having had kids of my own, I know now that like really the greatest thing for them is to have a passion, no matter what it is. And at 5 years old, I loved baseball. I loved, other things, but GI Joe, whatever I did, but drumming and everything about it captivated me very early. And by the time I was in junior high school and had discovered that there was such a thing as a rock star, um, by that point, I was already pretty sure that if that was a possibility, I wanted to try doing it. And through no credit of my own, I was very confident. I don't know why. I mean, I was pretty natural at drumming, but I wasn't, some kid phenom or anything. And yet, I really felt like being a successful drummer was a perfectly logical thing to do, and
Mm.
kind of felt like it was possible. I guess I kind of feel now, in hindsight, that lots of things in life are kind of possible if you believe it, and not
Right. That's
possible if
right.
you don't. But because of an unexplained cockeyed enthusiasm and confidence, the whole thing kind of felt natural, exciting, and wonderful, but not like, wow, I can't believe it. The drummer for Semisonic wrote an amazing book. I don't know if you ever, uh,
Oh.
yeah.
I've heard of this book, but I don't think I've actually read it.
So
Um,
you want to be a rock and roll star? It's called. What's great about it is he's a super intelligent, great writer who kind of went through the same thing I did, and I thought, man, I should write a book. As soon as I read his, I was like, okay, got it. I couldn't do it that well, um, but in his case, he was like, where were they? They were at some Ivy League school, and next thing you know, he's on, on the road, and so that would be kind of a fish out of water surprise type thing. For me, it was just it all felt like the next step, you know.
Mm.
Uh,
So you did go, and oh, so what about the music school that you went to at some point?
Well, yeah, I started going to. There was a Chabot College. It was a community college about 20 miles from where I lived, and they had a music teacher there named Frank Samaras, who I'd heard was really amazing, and he really was. But the focus was big band jazz and stuff, and I really wasn't that passionate about it. Although it got me into reading better and playing, listening, and trying to fit in with a band. And then the other thing music school does, which is good and bad, it and this wasn't a particularly a music school; it was the music department of a regular community college. But he was very good, so it was kind of like music school. But the blessing and curse of this is that as a young musician, you come out well with better knowledge, with an overall better knowledge of music, but also there can be kind of a sniffy, snooty thing about it too. You've been listening to a lot of Steely Dan, and all of a sudden, you know, uh, I don't know. You know where I'm heading.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I was. That'll get us to the Mr. Jones story.
Well, one question I had, and I guess I asked Matt this, but one thing that's I think musicians don't talk about sometimes is that. So I know you were from the Bay. I think you're from Oakland originally, right? So from
Yeah.
the Bay Area. How you when you joined the band, you would have been. I don't even remember.
Well, I was
Like
born in '67. That
in
old.
'91. So we're at 23.
24.
So
Yeah.
23 about. So I guess you were like, were you working at the time or living at home or wrapping up college? I always find that interesting too, right? Because some people that your passion might take 40 hours a week. And then what are you doing for the other, to get to pay the bills or
No,
whatever?
it's a great question. I had at the time I was living in San Francisco. I was going to SF State and trying to play in the music scene. I didn't want to be at SF State. I wanted it as something to fall back on, but I also felt like I didn't. I thought it was negative to even have a fallback, and I thought it
Right.
was a waste of time. And I wasn't a good student. Um, so That's where I was. I was living
Okay.
with my buddy Charlie Stockley on Terraville Ave in San Francisco, going to SF State and playing in the band. Everybody else was back in the East Bay, and I had moved to San Francisco to. And well, when we got signed, they gave us each $26,000, Geffen
Oh, right.
DGC.
Yeah.
And when I got that check, I just couldn't go back to SF State. And at that point, and of course, I lived on that for a year and a half. It was, I mean, I rode a bike and I ate burritos and shopped at secondhand stores, and it was easy. But yeah, once that happened, it was kind of like no going back. I thought, thank goodness I don't have to stay here another 3 years. I don't know what I
In
probably.
a bit of trivia, what was your major at FS State?
Well, it was going to be a BCA department, broadcast
Okay. Yeah.
communications, but only
Yep.
because I mean, that's what the football players were doing.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to work hard enough to be in the music thing. I just like so
Oh, I
that's
get it. I get it. Oh, that's great. Chris, before we move on, do you have any other questions about bio and crows and about the time joining
No, but
Heroes?
I guess, but it's interesting that it's like you're this moment there, like a lot of people, it's like leaving a job, but you just knew at that point, you're like, well, you've got the career. Why do you have to finish college? You've got the career that you were looking for at that point,
well. I mean, you have
or started at the start of it. You didn't have the career yet. You had the first step towards it.
well, what I thought the first step, yeah. In music, you never really know. I mean, when they gave us that could have been it. So what I thought was, this is good. You take it off. See ya. What I thought was, this gives me justification to not go to school for a while, and I got a year and a half to figure it out. But I did have. Sorry, I keep banging this table. It's probably rattling through
Oh,
your
that's all right.
high
That's
tech
fine.
instruments. I um, it's what I wanted, and what a break. Also, I
I,
should say, to me at that point, $26,000 was $26 million, because I had never
Yeah.
had more than one zero in my bank account, so felt pretty
But
good.
what I think is interesting sometimes when I think about people's stories or whatever, I interview someone is that, if I was talking to you in your 20s, I would be thinking of it from my standpoint in my 20s, right? Like, oh, how can I pursue my dream, or how could I have the confidence to do that? Now I sometimes think from the parents' perspective. So when I hear your story, I'm sometimes thinking of how I think your parents, right, that bought you that set, and then and then you're like, oh, I want to be a drummer, and they're probably like, oh, okay, maybe, and then all of a sudden you get that check, and they're like, "Wow, look at that!" I'm sure they
You're
were
like,
proud, or
oh
other family.
no, no. No, I
But
should say my parents were very supportive, and that is another thing that, no credit to me. I had parents that, my mom sang in the SF Symphony Chorus, and they were both interested in us. And I have a twin brother who played bass, Mike, and so yeah, my folks were all on board, and I had friends that didn't have that, and it was hard for them to play enough to get good, or to, they got no inspiration or backup, and so they faded out of it quickly. But you know, I had that luxury, so.
all right, great. Well, we can talk about some of the tracks from August and everything after, which has sold to this. Now I keep forgetting now how many million albums I've mentioned a couple times on the podcast, but
it's a
I
lot
keep
of
forgetting.
millions.
And it's still selling, as Steve knows. You mentioned on another podcast, right? You said, "Well, I still sometimes even get some royalties." It has sold a lot of.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm the
It,
luckiest drummer in Murfreesboro.
It's still a lot of. It looks like 7 million in the U.S. And I know, I'm trying to, for our listeners that haven't heard the interview, bring up some of the things that you brought up before, and you very modestly have said, "Well, other drummers could have done it. I just got lucky. It still would have been a popular album even without me." Maybe even probably, but I still want to give a lot of for someone who's not a drummer, give you a lot of, I don't know, accolades and praise to your performance. And what I thought was great, or no, sorry, what I guess shed a light or made things clearer to me is when you said in an interview recently that one of the things you bring or that you say that maybe other drummers don't consciously think about is trying to get into the mood of the song when you're doing the drumming and to really understand the mood of the song. And I felt that. And when I listened preparing for this interview, I noticed that quite a number of times. So I really want to compliment you on that. And Chris can talk about particular performances. I thought, in particular, the three that come to mind that I thought were fantastic, maybe a fourth I'd add there is and well, maybe five, but Anna Begins and Murder of One, or where I thought your performances really, yeah,
Oh,
got
thanks.
the mood of the song. Especially because Anna Begins, it's a very subtle song, and it changes a few times. You have to do that. Um, I guess one question I definitely want to ask you is, was it your idea or T Bone's or whoever on Ghost Train, right? That it sounds like the train is going,
Um,
which
Interesting.
is incredible.
Um, I don't remember that coming up. That was like what? Uh, it wasn't an intention, but
Yeah.
it happened.
Oh yeah. If you listen, it sounds like it feels like that locomotive. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I can't explain it, but if you listen to Ghost, I think that's one of the. That's why I love that song so much. One of
Wow.
it is that actual drum part in the with the bass and everything else too.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Is that what they call life imitating art, or is
Yeah,
that art?
something, something like that. And actually, even Perfect Blue Buildings recently, I'll talk about in a second. I saw a live thing where I could see you getting into the feel of the song with the little touches of the brush, I guess it is, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know that you've contributed so much to all the songs that you recorded, except for maybe we'll talk about Mr. Jones. But I guess writing credit wise, I guess the only official one you have is Time and Time Again. I did want to note that. I guess you contributed more than the other songs. I always get a little confused about how the writing credits work sometimes. Didn't you have any?
Yeah.
Don't know if you have any thought about that before we go to Chris.
Sure. And I don't think it's any big secret how we broke up our royalties on that. It was pretty I thought astute and benevolent on Adam's part. But with Time and Time Again, it just happened that Matt Malley and I were jamming along with that, and everybody came in one by one, and so I think that's how that happened. Um,
Okay.
but what we did with the whole record was divided into three separate parts. So lyric and melody was a third, and then so Adam got all that, deservedly so. And then a third was set out for music if you wrote the progression of the bridge or you had a big song change idea or whatever. And then the third we divided between all of us for performance.
Mm.
And it's the way that I can't remember who did it. It was a band in the '60s, '70s that did it that way. That made a lot of sense to keep the band together because obviously, if the drummer and bassist are like living with their folks and everybody else is shopping for homes, it can create resentment. So this allowed us to all be a part of the royalty thing, and yet it wasn't cut down the middle because you know, I mean, a song like Round Here, I'm proud of the drumming, but obviously, Adam created more that people would love about that song than I did. It only makes sense. I heard that the guys in Green Day split their stuff down the middle 33, 33,
Mm.
33, and good for them. But
It seemed to be a good balance the way you described
well,
it.
if I were
It
Billy
makes sense.
Joe, at a certain point, I'd be like, "Hey, come on."
Yeah. Chris, I didn't mean to
It's
cut
very
you off
easier. There's only three
before
of
you.
them, though. I feel like it's trickier
Yeah.
when there's three of them. It's easier to be like we're all going to share this, right? That's a kind
Well,
of
yeah,
a
everybody gets a bunch. Yeah, you're right. But that was our setup, and it has been. I mean, I say it's a wonderful gift to me because I have a simple life in a small town in Tennessee, but I have an easy life. I don't have to, you know, I, it's not luxurious, but I don't have to work 40 hours a week and worry about things happening. And so I am so grateful for that. I work with animals a couple days a week. I ride my bike a lot. I do simple, wonderful things that I'm grateful for, and wouldn't be able to do that if I were digging ditches, which
Yeah.
was my fault. No.
Chris,
No,
I didn't mean to
one of
cut
my
you
friends
off.
who said,
Yeah.
"Oh, does it was I know someone, Steve Poltz, who was like helped write. He's a musician, but also in Nashville, who had written with Jewel, "You Were Meant for Me," and they obviously a giant hit. And he's like, yeah, writing that song was like it's like a grant from it's just it appears, and now he just gets to keep doing his thing, and it's a kind of a beautiful thing when you have like something that's that big. It can kind of it's beautiful that that music industry from that at least that time period can still allow you to sort of have some ability to live off that from all these years later. You know.
Yeah, and being in a band, um, in a lot of different bands, our goal always in recording a record was to be successful enough to be able to do another one. You know.
Right. Yeah.
uh,
Uh, Chris,
so
did I cut you off when I was talking about his performance on August in certain songs?
Oh no, I think you nailed it right, Eric. I think you know Anna Begins. We should probably talk more about because I think
not too far
I
away.
was.
No, it's
Can
great.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you're
Okay.
great.
Um, just with Anna Begins, I was hitting me that like when you think about that song, like the drums are actually probably one of the first things that you think about. And there's I'm curious if there was anything specific with that part because it does that the drums in that really drive the song. Was there sort of a lot of intention on those or anything? And I guess maybe in general, if there's other songs where you really specifically remember thinking about how those parts were going to play out, I'm really interested in that as well.
yeah. Well, and on that one in particular, Anna Begins. It originally started with a groove that Toby Hawkins had done, the original drummer. Um, they had recorded, and the demo version is him. If you heard the demo version, uh, and so that's what I heard, which fit perfectly for my speedy little music school hands. But so I loved things like that. I loved Manu Cachet and you know I loved all these drummers that were uh, um, played groovy but could had chops. You know, a weakness of a young drummer. But there I was. Um, anyway, I can't remember. What was I even talking about? What was the question?
Anna
Oh, just
Begins.
your just
Yeah.
your thought about Anna
Well,
Begins.
so
Yeah.
yeah, the thing about Anna Begins is that I love the song so much. I love the song so much that I would forget I was a drummer and just for like the idea to forget you're a drummer playing drums and just become reacting to this the inspiration of the music. That's what I could do on Anna Begins, uh, and because I power and passion and beauty and pain, melancholy. I mean, right up my alley, you know, and it was everything I wanted to do as a drummer. So that song in particular was one that I just loved being in and hearing and, you know.
I saw it, and one more question maybe before we talk about Mr. Jones is that uh, I know that the album had a certain feel of it, and maybe in some cases either the mix or your playing had to be a little muted to fit in what you were trying to record. I say that particularly for Murder of One. I got to see one performance of that online. There's not a ton of concert footage on YouTube from you at that time. There's a Letterman performance. There's a I think it's a Cologne, Germany. There's a Germany 1994 performance where you're there, and I could just see you having so much fun with Murder of One because you're allowed to give it
Yeah.
the full throttle that maybe
Yeah.
that couldn't be on the recorded version. And I know when Jim plays it, I see him going full throttle now too. They don't play that song so much anymore. But anyway, I just
Mhm.
saw that last night, and I saw you with a big smile on your face as you're clanging those drums. And it's such a great
Yeah.
part, many parts of that song. So yeah. Anyway, that
There's
caught my attention.
at the end of the song, there's that fill where it's just 16 16th notes
Yeah.
hit as hard as I could hit.
Yeah.
So which was hard to do without I sped that up early, and so I had to work on da, 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 hitting it as hard as I could without speeding up. But I remember that being such a magical part of the live show for me because normally it's like the last song and
Yeah,
we've been rocking, you're sweaty, and
yeah.
you come down to that part, and man, that was kind of like we're heading home, and of course the audience would go crazy, and
Yeah, they were, especially at that point in their 20s, they were jumping, and Adam was jumping around,
yeah,
and no,
yeah,
it was great because that's not going to happen as much now when you have a bunch of 60-year-olds drinking wine and sitting down. So
yeah,
you got to experience that really special time, and of course at that time the Crows catalog didn't have a lot of fast bangers where they have a lot more of those now. So that
yeah,
was, as you said, it was a great way to end the shows in the few times. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see you or during that time. I was a fan since the beginning. I guess I didn't become a super fan until later. So I almost don't have as many. I almost was going to say this in the beginning. I almost don't have as many memories of you because right, you're on that album, and then the next album you weren't, and then on the videos you are in Mr. Jones in the back. And but round here, I've noticed you're only on for like 1 second, right? Is it you're driving the car?
yeah.
Yeah, you drive. It's either I think it's you and Matt drive up, right? There's one part of around here that you and Matt drive up. Oh, and Dan's in the back.
Hands in the back.
Yeah, yeah. And so, because I watched that recently, because I was almost like, even though you were such an instrumental part of that, you right there, of course, you could see you on the performances at Letterman and Saturday Night Live, but
Yeah,
so I felt like I didn't really know you that well outside of your drumming. So that's why this is a real pleasure.
yeah,
Yeah. So I guess one fun fact that came up, I guess recently, I hadn't heard it before, Chris, and maybe you did on the podcast, whatever. That even though Adam says "Round Here" is the song that made the band and the whole album sold well, but Mr. Jones is arguably the biggest hit and still play it on the radio to this day. And that was the one song, I guess, on the album, on the recorded version, that you did not play on.
yeah.
Did you? Which is probably in a way kind of funny, maybe if you laugh in retrospect. Did you want to? Talk, if you just that life
Well,
is silly, right? Life is
that really, and in hindsight, it really comes down to the music school nerd that I was. And it's true, I did not like the song. Now I know why, and I didn't at the time. I just knew it was more than not liking it. It scared me, right? Mr. Jones threatened my musoid nerdy musicality because it's not like anything I'd ever come across. I didn't I didn't get the tempo, progression, melody, all of it together to me is just baffled me. I couldn't figure out what was good about it, and more importantly, I couldn't figure out what would make me be good on it. And so I just started ignoring it and just hoping we would get more songs and then maybe it'll go away. And I even told Adam how much I disliked the song at one point, and then it got bad where I was just like, it scared me. I was like, how can I be this amazing drummer? How can I be Steve Gadd if I'm stumped by this song, which I called stupid and country? And well, it was something I couldn't figure out how to make sound good. And now I know. But at the time, I was able to put all of my insecurity on on the on this terrible song that apparently wasn't so bad after all.
just
Because
Some people like it. Yeah, it's
people like it. It was the one that
um
I know. That was the one that got me to be a fan. Not around here. It was
there
actually
you
for me. It was
go,
Mr. Jones.
there you go. But
Um,
I still, as if I think of the body of work, um, I see how you have things that stick out to create the whole. I still think that well, when I think of what the median vibe of that record is, Mr. Jones seems like an anomaly to me. Not that I think I'll tell you what I think. It's like Brown Eyed Girl, right?
that's what, yeah.
yeah, that's a good
Obviously,
analogy.
Van Morrison is a genius songwriter, as is Adam, and I give him all the kudos I can. I didn't know how good he was back then because I didn't know, you know, uh, how I wasn't as good a judge as songwriting. I just know, "Hey, I love these songs." Um, uh, but Brown Eyed Girls, you know, Brown Eyed Girls is a song I never need to hear again. And it's not because it's not a great song. It's just I've kind of heard it enough. That's for me. And that's kind of how I felt about Mr. Jones. And yet there was Anna Begins and Love and Addiction and all these songs that I felt
Mm.
were like written for me to make great. You know, that was my young, silly idea. Uh, and whatever the person I was great for the record. Probably not great for the band, you know. But in hindsight, I think probably that's fair. That I was good for that record.
I'm glad you mentioned Love and I was almost going to ask you if you remembered any of those like demos and playing on them, and because that actually is my favorite song from the demos, Love and Addiction. And I'm going to go back and listen to your drum part now, since I
That
see
was
some
Toby.
passion. Oh, that was
Actually,
okay.
that was Toby. But
Okay,
that was that. I bet that's why I joined the band. That song. When I
yeah.
heard that song, I was like, "Oh my goodness,
Oh, that's great.
perfect."
Well, as you said in
It's
another
interesting that you mentioned
podcast.
Van
Oh yeah,
Morrison, right? Because you guys played Caravan a whole bunch on that tour.
He did, which I
Yeah,
love. That was, you know,
you
that
guys
was
weren't
great.
playing Brown Eyed Girl. You again that, but I think it's a good analogy. I think of the in the catalog, right? That like Brown Eyed Girl is a it's a Van Morrison song, and I'm sure he's not embarrassed by it. But it's also it is the sort of more poppy range of that stuff, which and that's generally again the big Van Morrison fans would go to Into the Mystic or
Yes,
Caravan or
yeah.
yeah. That's interesting. The Okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about a lot of different things and lost track there. I guess maybe we touched on the tour. So you toured. If you were in the band for 3 years, I'm guessing you were touring a lot of that, at least half, right? If not,
Well, yeah, we were on the road. We started out doing little things here and there. Went out with Los Lobos, did some shows with Dylan, did some shows with Midnight Oil, which for me, I don't know if the other guys had heard of Midnight Oil. It was like one of my favorite bands. So there comes that little thing. We're
did you
slightly,
was it a good experience touring with them and meeting them as was it say one of your favorite bands or
yeah, oh yeah, everything. It was always great. Uh, but our first real tour was, as you probably know, we went out with the Cranberries and Suede,
oh right,
and that was the first time. Suede was a band that was supposed to be huge here, and it was Suede, then the Cranberries, then us. Of course, the Cranberries had a huge hit while we were on
yeah,
that. Just before we started the tour, their song came out, "Linger,"
yeah.
and then Mr. Jones got pretty good while we were on that, and so it all kind of fell apart. I think at the end, I think it was supposed to go longer than it did, um, but London Suede didn't have any radio, and at the time, that was kind of how it worked. Radio was, MTV and radio. So, but that was the first time we got in a van and a trailer. We rented like this Ford Econoline and then welded a trailer hitch on the back, and we drove it 45,000 miles and then returned it. Um, but we had a trailer, and then we also had Adam's Maxima, his Nissan Maxima, because there were so many guys who were like, "Oh, this sucks." So we had a car that would follow, and that was the loud music car. If you wanted to hear loud music, you rode in the Maxima. Um, so that's how we did it we set out and did it for months that way until we finally got a bus. And then we did bus tours from then on. And so, yeah, it was
And,
a while.
and can you, because I'm not great memorizing dates, even though I'm pretty good with numbers. Is that like during your time with the band, how much of that did the like when did the band hit it big, right? Like was it huge the last 6 months that you were in the band or something like that? Like you saw a transition, obviously.
Yeah.
um,
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was when we did Letterman. I can't remember if we did Letterman or Saturday Night Live first, but whichever one we did, um, I don't know if you heard that story I told on another podcast about we were checking our Scantron numbers or whatever they tell you
oh
how
yeah,
many,
yeah, yeah.
units you sold. So we were getting up to like 750 a week. And then we did, I guess was it Letterman or Saturday Night Live, whichever one was
SNL
first.
would have been first. SNL
SNL
was like
was.
January, and then Letterman would have been like March.
Yeah. So we did SNL and we're selling 750 units a week. And that week, I think we sold 150 or 115,000 or something.
Jeez,
And it was like, wow. So,
that's fast.
yeah.
That's about right. So, like the last 6 to 8 months of you in the band is when obviously Mr. Jones was on before that, but that's when you were, hitting into the stratosphere.
Yeah. And so
Um,
we did a lot of big theater tours when I was in the band, headlining with openers. And then we did the Stones tour. And after that, I think we did some more headlining stuff at like theaters and big halls, but not arenas or they would later like team up with other bands and then combine their draws to do big sheds and stuff. But we were still doing like big halls and theaters. And so then we did the Stones tour, and it was pretty close after that that I was fired. So yeah,
One thing I wanted to get to before that, and just I don't know. Again, you don't have to answer if you don't want. I think it's just more of an interesting how I think about people. Adam has mentioned a lot of times about how his view of fame, right? How he wanted to be famous and then have dealing with fame, et cetera, et cetera. Did you have any of those issues? Like we don't hear from it from the other band members. Obviously, you're not going to be as famous as the lead singer, but did you have that? And then also, you mentioned at one of your just the one podcast I listened to recently, you were talking about substance abuse and AA and alcohol. Like, was there some? I don't need stories, so to speak, but was there crazy partying going on during the last 6? Because you're super popular, traveling the world. You're young. I don't know if you have a sentence or two just about dealing with that personally.
well, there's a lot of partying going on in my room. I like to say, somebody said it's tough because when you're in a position like that, you're basically the guest of honor at a party every night,
Right.
and I definitely drank too much, and I wasn't, I just would get in arguments. One time, Adam even said to me, he said, "Man, the only time we argue is when you're drinking." And I was like, "Oh, that." In hindsight, that
Mhm.
would have been a good thing to take to note. I really had such a weird idea of what I was doing. I kind of felt like some of those things were allowed or even almost expected, and
Yeah.
you know, and almost like that was part of my role was to be wild and belligerent. Um, but yeah, it
Keith
wasn't.
Moon, right? If you are the drummer in a rock and roll band, right?
Yeah,
You're supposed to throw drums into pools, right? That's what I've been
yeah.
told.
I'd say, guys, I never passed out on stage. What's wrong? Um, uh, but that was just one of the issues. I mean,
Yeah.
because that wasn't that wouldn't have been a deal killer because uh, I wasn't like a blackout drunk at that point. I quit drinking 15 years ago, and but there were other things. Adam
Yeah.
and I didn't get along, and it was a weakness of mine. Adam's an extreme person, and I think extreme people do extreme things, like convey their music to 20,000 people at once. I mean, Adam is an amazing singer, songwriter, performer, and I guess I wasn't ready uh, to hang out with people that large at that point. I kind of, I came from kind of a more blue collar thing, and I was like, yeah, get over yourself. Um, anyway,
It's
That's
interesting,
good. I
but in telling that about that, but like, what was the experience then of doing some of those in terms of like going from like being blue collar to doing like Saturday Night Live and Letterman? Do you have any sort of memories of those, or what was that a interesting experience, a difficult experience
oh
in that regard, or
no, it was all amazing. It was all wonderful, and and yeah, I mean, we when you do Saturday Night Live, it's a week long event. Everybody sees the show, but you get there like earlier in the week, and they put you up right there in Times Square at a funky hotel, and then I think Thursday you do the photo shoot, and Friday you do a sound check maybe, and Saturday, so it's kind of like a week long thing where you're not needed much, but you're in a nice place, and so it's. And of course Letterman too is like that, and there were so many amazing. The Stones tour was just unbelievable, and just yeah. Um,
yeah? Any specific memories of playing this like, stadiums that big with the Stones, especially coming from playing like clubs and theaters to playing literally like football stadiums? Was
yeah,
that again? Was that difficult from like a sound, just like from like a literal like as a musician perspective? That's a very different thing than playing. I would imagine than playing even a
yeah.
theater.
And
But
the
like
sound
memories from
was
that.
that was the first memory was hitting a bass drum at a sound check, and 3 seconds later hearing thunder come from the sky, and we all went. And I hit it again, and sure enough, it was the bass drum bouncing back at RFK Stadium in Washington, and it changed when people were in there. But I thought, man, we're going to have to do all the songs so that they're in tempos that bounce back correctly.
Hmm.
Boom, boom, ba, ga, boom, boom. Uh, that was interesting. The sound of the crowd is neat because um, when a crowd like that starts clapping, you don't hear anybody individually anymore. You just kind of hear this rise, see rise, and that's neat. But there's other things that aren't like from a performance angle. As a drummer, I was about 50 feet from, or I don't know, 75 feet from the first row. In fact, I think because of the height of the stage, I couldn't even see the first few rows. And so it feels really remote from that standpoint. And, like, I didn't, on the Stones tour, you didn't meet anyone, you wouldn't engage with anybody because the security's so tight.
Mm.
You just kind of do your thing, and for me, it was do my thing and go back and watch the Stones.
Not a
That's
bad thing to
neat.
do, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it was great.
one kind of, and this ties into a question. We got one question from an audience member that I'll say in a second. But one question I was going to have, which I thought the answer was none, but then when I watched that Germany show, I was going to say, were there any songs from Recovering the Satellites that you played at all? And I guess one answer for sure is Children in Bloom, because
Yeah.
that concert I watched from Germany, I was
Mhm.
surprised. I knew that they were playing that early before the album was released, but I didn't know that much earlier.
Yeah.
So it was neat to see her performance on that one because that was quite a different song than what so it seemed like you had fun playing that one too,
Oh,
because
I
the
love
challenge.
playing that one. Yeah, it was crazy that looking back on that, I was actually trying to displace the beat in a way that would kind of uh, surprise the listener. Like, I don't know what I was trying to do, what kind of crazy tower of power insanity I was trying to put into a beautiful song. No, I love playing that song, and I love the song. Uh,
Do you think there were other songs from that album you played before, or you played, or that you could
um,
remember, or
I
no?
can't remember
Might have been
if you want to
Elizabeth, I
listen.
think, would be the other one.
Oh yeah, yeah, that Good Night Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
Did Shallow Days make it on that? That was
No.
No, it didn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
There were a few, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I was always wondering about that. So the question was from, I don't know if you know that there's that a guy we've had on the podcast a few times, Jeff Harkness. We joke that he's the Counting Crows historian. He
Mm.
wrote a book called Rain King. Adam Duritz and the Counting Crows, just trying to be the first person, kind of like we're in the podcast, the first person to kind of chronicle some of these things, like just like to get old articles and put the history together, just in case people want to look back, maybe even when we're all long gone, someone wants to know about the history of the Crows. So he wrote, I guess what he's hinting at is that if you listen to any other albums, was there a song because of the drumming on it or the challenge that maybe you wanted to play on, or that you really are like, oh, it would have been so much fun to play on this? I don't know how much you've heard from the Crows since, after departing, but
Well, if that's the end of the question,
yeah.
Children in Bloom is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's great. And
yeah.
when you talked about that you were trying to do this challenge and fit it in, that's what, from what I understand, the reason that song is so powerful is that's what every band member was trying to do. It's such a unique song that you're trying to invert things and do the opposite. And yeah.
Well, and what trying to create tension and release there, the big or the first part would be the chaos tension. You can't latch onto it, and just when that becomes annoying, you settle into this warm, beautiful blanket of the second part.
Yeah.
and and that feels so soothing, the dichotomy, and then back in the ocean swimming for your life. you know I love the feeling that I got from those songs,
Mm.
and how easy it was for me to like I say, react and try to be what the singer would do if the singer were playing drums. And Adam is easy to follow, super dynamic, and uh, great choices. So live, that was always really easy. Just follow Adam, and it's going to be a great show.
Was that how it worked in terms of, like, because the thing about, you guys were developing sort of that improv, right? Especially like Murder of One and Round Here, there was those 93, 94 shows, you guys, it's different kind of every time. And what was that like for you in your space of trying to sort of develop, because there really wasn't maybe so as much of a language of improvisation in these songs. It's not like you guys were going out as a jam band or a funk band and
Yeah.
improving on a regular basis, but you're improving in a very sort of unique way. And like, what was your perspective on sort of the evolution of that in your time playing those songs?
Well, I think when you're playing every night and allowing things to take off if they will, or go in a different direction if they will, and if you follow a singer who's thinking in that way, um, well, you find some things that work, and it's just basically another possibility when you're there. And so now maybe you've in this song there's three or four things that have worked, and now you kind of don't know where it's going to go, but there's a few possibilities, and you can tell when it's going in here. And so that's really the benefit of a live band. When a band plays a lot, you just develop, pretty soon every song has a section in it that could, on a whim, avail itself if it seemed appropriate. And so now there was a couple downsides for me, besides all that greatness, the musicality of amazing, except that for me, sometimes what that meant was taking a big song and let's recreate it at a whisper.
Hmm. Yeah.
So a really great, interesting musical drummer would find soft sounds, and I was kind of a blockhead. I wanted to hit as hard as I could and be passionate, and so for me, the acoustic stuff, that was a big issue. I didn't want to do the acoustic things because I felt like everybody else gets to pull out their Martin guitars and their accordions, all these fun, badass instruments. And I could have figured out my own version of that. But instead, I was just like, oh, I'll knock my keys on this bottle, like, I don't.
I mean, in some ways, that's almost the most interesting part of this conversation, because you're drumming so great on the album, but and if they didn't know anything about you, they might think that you prefer softer, or that you would like the acoustic, right? Because I said their bangers aren't as much on that album compared to some of the
Yeah.
others, so that's kind of ironic in a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I love the soft stuff too, but
yeah.
I love it as a break from the hard stuff.
Right.
From
You're in Perfect Blue Buildings. You're not hitting the drums as hard as you
yeah.
can. That will take away from the feel of the
And
song.
especially, I was watching actually. I pulled up on YouTube. There's like a show from I think it's like London in like April of '94, and it was literally it was acoustic set, then electric set, and you literally switched drum sets mid
Mhm.
show. Like you were literally playing two different drum sets. So it wasn't like one song like up and down. It was more like we're gonna play a whole acoustic thing. Again, for you, with a whole, you're like literally switching kits mid show, which must have been sort of an odd. Or maybe it wasn't, but like, it seems like it might be an odd process to sort of do that in a
It took
70-minute show.
it took a better drummer than I was. I mean, because uh, another drummer would have probably got excited and gone down to Guitar Center and spent a few $100 and set up a little rig that if we ever go acoustic, I'm going to do this stuff and enjoy it. And instead, I was like, I'm a drummer, you know. I don't want to shake things. I don't want to tap things. I want to, you know,
Right.
you
Well, yeah.
know.
But what's also interesting, you did it well, right? Maybe you didn't want to, but those performances all sound great. So it's not like
Oh
I
well,
mean, you
thanks.
were
Yeah.
under a bit of duress there, but the it came out really well, which is kind of an interesting thing about I think intentions there. Because I mean, if you look back, even there's some of YouTube where you guys are playing like whisper quiet. There's like it's like an MTV thing or something, and you're I think playing like a box and you've got like a cymbal overhead or something like that. It's a very stripped
Oh
down thing
yeah.
and it
Hmm.
sounds great. It doesn't sound like that would have been like your preferred setup for that time, but it would still it came through well, you know?
Well, I remember in the what I used to do is just use a smaller drums on that,
Mhm.
which Adam hated. When we went acoustic, I would have a small bass drum. He's like, I don't want a bass drum at all. I'm like, well, I'm the drummer, you know. uh, and so eventually, I remember he took the bass drum away, and I was so pissed. I'm like, I mean, is this my prerogative or not to have a bass drum? Well, what he was trying to do was say, and I mean, this was 30 years ago. He's savvier now too, but I mean, what he wanted was, I don't want the, I don't want the same parts softer. I want you to do something different, you know.
Mm.
Um, and uh, and so I remember on that on one show I saw a video of where I'm doing the acoustic thing. We were doing the acoustic thing, and I was playing a cymbal and just hitting my floor tom as a bass drum. I was playing the same parts between the floor tom and the snare drum, and so once again, not quite getting the musical transcendence that they were looking for. So
Mm. No, that makes sense. Don't feel bad. But, don't forget you're also in your 20s, banging things hard. Guys like maybe testosterone, and everything else.
that was it.
Um, so we've been talking for quite a long time. I do know that Crows fans probably are curious what you did post band. I know it's covering 30 years, and you don't have to go into all the detail because I was doing my own research. It's I'm getting pieces here and there. It was tough to put everything together. I know that you've talked about touring with Toad. You did some things with Third Eye Blind. You're in a band. Is it pronounced Luce or Luce?
Loose. Yeah,
Loose.
for a
Sorry.
couple
And
records.
John
Loose.
Harding, Penelope Houston. So a lot. And then you moved to Nashville, geez, almost 20 years ago now,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
2006. Yeah,
So if you just want to quickly talk about your post Crows work and then maybe why you chose to move to Nashville since you're from the Bay Area.
yeah. Well, the Bay Area in 2006, my family, my then wife, we were married for 22 years, and our kids were young at the time, and we moved to Nashville 2006 because it's Music City, and I thought, the Bay Area. It was hard for me to make a living in the Bay Area as a musician. Uh, because well, I just wasn't finding things that were, you know, uh, Counting Crows kind of set me into a situation where it's like, all right, now I have a mortgage and a car payment and two kids.
Right.
Uh, well, at a certain point, I had come out with the band The Bittersweets, and
Hmm.
we mixed a record in Nashville, and I loved it out here. And I thought, wow, I should see if we can relocate to Music City, and we did, and and it's been wonderful. So since 2006. Um, I've been doing records out here and touring out here with Nashville artists, and I still fly. I've flown to the Bay Area a couple times and done records. Also gone to England and done a record there. So done a lot of recording in that way. Um, in about 2017, 2018, my wife and I got separated, and we still all lived as a family in the same house. We all got along. uh, but 2020, during the pandemic, we decided that was it. We sold our house, and I moved to, our kids are now in their mid 20s. I moved to a little town called Murfreesboro, Tennessee,
Hmm.
and I love it down here. And I have been concentrating more on music education. So I did a 10-part podcast called Letters to an Aspiring Musician, where I tried to take all the things I learned in 30 years and, what do I wish I'd known when I was 20, basically. And so that's available. And what else I did? Oh, I wrote a book called Groove Control, which I teach out of. And well, I have a studio now, a teaching studio here in Murfreesboro called Murfreesboro Music Lab, mumulab.org, and and I work with singer songwriters, drummers, all kinds of bands, even. And really, my thing is just trying to shave time, money, and pain off people's careers by not telling them what to do, but telling them what I saw, and you take it from there. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
um,
I will put links in for the book, the podcast, and the Mumu Lab.
yeah.
Are there any of recordings that you have done in the last whatever 10, 20 years that if Crows fans want to check out some of your work either
Sure.
on YouTube or a particular, what's one or two things that you can plug as far as your own drumming?
Well, I'll tell you some stuff I'm proud of. All the Loose records, Luce. In the late '90s, they had a big song called "Good Day," but we did two, three records after that. They're all great. Tom Luce is such an amazing songwriter.
Hmm.
And then I mentioned England. I was invited to go out to Wales and record with a band called IKO, an English
Okay.
band. Again, just jaw-droppingly gorgeous music that I was so lucky to be able to be there and just listen to and react to. Um, what else? We did a couple records, the Bittersweets. The first record I really love. The second is great, but I really love the first one more because very proud of that. I just gorgeous songs, an amazing vocalist, uh, and I thought they recorded the drums really well. But yeah, I'll forget. I'll think of it after I've hung up.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some opportunity for people to check out your work post Crows. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'll give those a listen as well. I know you mentioned another podcast about you touring with Toad, and the only thing I want to say about that, I was a big Toad, or no, that you were almost did, or I
I
forget.
did. Yeah.
You did, but I remember you mentioning about the bass drum, and it's so funny you did about the bass drum there because I always found that Toad. I can't explain it. That drummer there is almost as like the best use of a bass drum in a band. Like he does really well. So it's funny. I always noticed that. So it's funny that a professional drummer like yourself, you were talking about that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I love those guys, and Randy is amazing. And what happened was that his dad was sick, and so I just filled in for 3 weeks. And what I was saying about the bass drum was that when I went to learn the songs, I had 4 or 5 days, I think, and I know most of the songs. I love the songs, but the bass drum and bass match on all those. So it's doom 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 doom. And so I was like, oh man, if I don't do the right bass drum pattern and match Dean's bass part, everybody's going to be like, hey, where's Randy? And they did anyway. But anyway, I tried to just get it as as accurate as I could, and that was fun. And those are great people, the guys in Toad the Wet Sprocket, and obviously the songs are so beautiful, and I'm a
And
lucky
they're
guy.
and they're I think they're from either Santa Barbara, or the Bay Area, something like, I can't remember
Santa
now.
Barbara, yeah, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, not
just
too
beneath
far.
LA, and so about 8 hours, 9 hours drive from where we grew up in the Bay
Did
Area.
what's the oh, just this is a kind of a long running joke of the podcast. Do you? I heard the one thing of you talking about you were studying other drummers for a while when you had some free time and the things that they do. Did you happen to ever study? Because some people think he's great. Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins, who likes to hit hard, but he also has some subtle work as well.
I,
I'm guessing no, but
I did
maybe it's
not.
something.
Um, uh, I know his drumming, and I would say that I was trying to veer away from his direction and get back to a more meat and potatoes type thing.
Ah, I see. I see.
The drummers I studied were, Ringo, Mick Fleetwood, Stan Lynch, all these
Right.
guys that came up when I was growing up, all the hit songs that I grew up listening to. And I go back and listen to the parts and be like, wow, that was simpler than I remember. you know, so yeah,
Okay.
Jimmy Chamberlain would have been on the other side of that.
Right, right. Yeah, he has a couple subtle songs, but known more for his fast and powerful drumming.
My
Uh,
favorite Smashing Pumpkins song is 1979, if that's any indication of that.
okay, right. Did is there a way that I forget your social media presence? If Crows fans want to follow you, what's the best way to do so?
Well,
Or
you are my now. You're my social media presence.
right?
I'm not. not
No,
I
I'm not a
don't.
big social media guy, so that's why.
I have Facebook. My son. I think I have Instagram. I said to my son, "Should I get Instagram?" He goes, "Probably not," because he knew by the time I figured it out, we'll be on to Xtagram or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
Um, but I do want to send folks, if they will, to if you need it. Letters to an Aspiring Musician is a
Yes.
10-part podcast I did, and then hit me at Facebook. You'll probably find a picture of a lamb. I'm not a good marketer. I should market myself better, but I teach out here, and I am about to start recording tracks at my house.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's the next thing. In fact, do you have a sec? I got one quick story.
Yeah,
Uh,
please.
uh, because, I was very upset when Counting Crows ended for me. In hindsight, of course, it was the right thing to do. And everything worked out exactly as it should. I'm so grateful. But at the time, I was really upset. And I got rid of my drums. Geffen bought us these beautiful drum workshop drums. I did them on Letterman and Saturday Night Live. We recorded the record with them. And when I got fired, I was so pissed. I sold them for nothing to this
Oh.
guy who bought them. Was so thrilled. He's like, "Wow, these are great drums. Thanks." I said, "Take them, beat it." And that was the last I saw of those drums until about 6, 8 months ago. The guy called me out of the blue and asked if I wanted to buy him back for the same amount I paid. He paid for him, and I was like, "Yes." It cost me more to ship them from the Bay Area. Well, they sat in a shaded room for the last 25, 30 years, and I just got those drums back. So it's just kind of funny. I don't know if you'll
What
believe
what
this.
what what do you think instigated him to do that for you?
Well, I'll tell you, he's a nice guy and he has a bunch of drums. He's a big drum nerd. Sorry, this may not work on the podcast, but I'm
Oh,
just going to turn this on and see if you can. Uh, so
oh
these
yeah.
are the drums from that whole era.
Oh,
And
that's
then
cool.
that
Wow.
was, that was the acoustic set.
Oh,
but,
there you go. Wow.
but yeah, isn't that crazy? So,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
yeah. And
And you got
so what a nice guy.
you got the platinum records on the wall there and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I got my whole wall of fame there. It's all pretty much one record, but that's
but
all right.
he's the one that collector was the one that contacted you, right? Like you didn't contact him.
Oh yeah, he contacted me. um, he's just a neat guy. I mean, like as we spoke and stuff and got it all together, he would send me pictures of other drum sets he had that were like, wow, like, so he's one of those guys that just had a bunch of really interesting, nice drum sets and probably wanted to get rid of this one so he could get more. So anyway,
That
just
I
very
love
kind.
when that stuff goes full circle. By the way, back then when you left the band, that was when the internet was bare. Like, how did you even sell them? Did you put like classified ad or something, or is it
That was
friends?
it. The
Classified ad.
classified
Okay.
flea market, and I put
Uh,
and I put fired sale.
Fired
So
sale,
I
million
was so
dollar.
petty, I had to get that in. But I didn't put anything about Counting Crows. I just put drum workshop, something like 7 drums, cheap, you know. And a guy showed up and took them all away, and I felt so good. But then for the next 25 years, I every time I saw drum workshop drums, I thought, oh, I miss those toms, that. And so anyway,
Oh, that's a really that's an not an inspiring story, but just nice when things like that happen.
it's a good
It
world.
that's when you feel it's a good world, or that sometimes things come in full circle, or that we can
Yeah.
actually, that mistakes aren't always permanent or whatever. So,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? It's kind of a physical embodiment of sort of like accepting that time, like the time period, even kind of like back in, right? It's like you can see the drums. You couldn't look at the drums now, but now you can happily look at the drums, and they can just be a nice thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask you maybe
Well,
to wrap up. Like, what
yeah.
is your
Nice.
perspective? You said, it's like you were angry at the time. Now you're sort of like, what is your sort of perspective on that sort of that time period now, looking back all these years later? Because it's such a an interesting and just sort of like that rocket ride of a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad you asked because I always want my gratitude for the band to come out. My gratitude, and uh, I love the songs that we did, and Adam is an incredible singer songwriter that I came into his life. Luckily, when I was young and dumb, and I am I feel guilty. I feel guilty. I'm so lucky because I'm right where I want to be. So
And that's great. And I always think I know Adam's the face of the band, the man behind the lyrics. But in some ways, I always thought the Crows were a bit of a super group, including members that joined later, and you're a part of that, right? It was kind of a mix from other Bay Area groups that were some of the best at that time, and I think that's why the all the albums work, because it's the collective, and you were a part of that. So thanks to the Crows fans for right the album that got most people into the Crows. It certainly made them the most famous, and you were a big part of that. So thank you.
mhm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. So thanks so much, and what a pleasure. And to listeners, you will, we'll be doing more right here on Sullivan Street. Thank you, Steve.